Agenda for this video will cover Zillow, the platform, renter demand, the analytics and the suggestions that Zillow makes and how to think about them, and then finally some concrete tactics you can use on Zillow Rental Manager to drive interest and hopefully to get you a renter sooner rather than later. When you do this as the landlord, you have reinforced for the potential new landlords would be surprised by the amount of other landlords, so your competition. So let me explain why the world is still going to need humans for a little while. If you clicked on this video, it is likely because you are self-managing a rental property and you have that property listed on Zillow Rental Manager, but it's not going that well, meaning that no renters are coming in or the wrong kind of renters are coming in. And now you might be in the dubious position that no one wants to be in, which is paying an extra mortgage. So if that sounds like you, don't worry, because this video is for you. And I'm going to talk about why you should still be hopeful that there are lots of renters that want your property, how to navigate Zillow, and then finally some tactics that you can use to make your listing stand out on Zillow. And as a quick disclaimer, Zillow does not pay me, nor does any other rental platform that I feature on my channel. And that's because I actually make my money from the 3 books I've written about real estate investing for new real estate investors. And I offer consulting services for new landlords nationwide that want someone to hold their hand through the experience of getting their first renter. And yes, for those of you that are worried about federal, state, and local laws, as well as squatters and evictions, interest-bearing deposits, the rules around when you can enter the property, etc., is what I cover on this channel and what I cover in my consulting services. And if you're interested in that, I will speak more to my consulting services at the end of this video, so that if you are not interested in those services, you don't have to sit through them. So Zillow is free to you as a landlord. And if a renter submits an application, it's going to cost the renter money. I think it's $30 the last time I checked. And there's rules in different states around how that application is used and what your obligation is as a landlord. But critical to you for this video, you don't have to pay to be on Zillow. It's free to you as the landlord. And then the other major benefit to being on Zillow is not just Zillow's brand recognition, but also the fact that Zillow feeds into Trulia and HotPads. And this is important because when we look at nationwide search patterns for rental platforms, Trulia is the yellow line on this graph. And when we look at the search traffic here, Trulia has 4-to-1, so over 80% search interest compared to Zillow's 20%. And the next best or tied with Zillow is apartments.com. We see HotPads lower down on the list, but if you have a listing on Zillow, it's going to go to Trulia and it's going to go to HotPads. But as far as search volume, you really want to be the places where other people are. And in this case, we can see Zillow Rental has a lot of traffic and Trulia has a lot of traffic. So it's just a good place to be. By the way, if you are new here, welcome. I am Erin Spradlin. This is my channel. So if you have learned anything so far in this video, please like it. And if you want information or notifications on any of those topics, please subscribe. Thanks. And as a note, my philosophy for getting renters is always to go big on major platforms, even if you have a particular niche, like long-term furnished rentals, which are also called monthly rentals, monthly furnished rentals, etc. And I'll speak to those in a bit. And the reason for that is because regardless of what kind of rental you are doing, so standard long-term unfurnished, meaning just a standard long-term rental, which is common on Zillow and Trulia, or a furnished long-term or a short-term rental, volume is always going to be the name of the game for you as the landlord. The reason why I'm calling this out is because new rental property owners ask me about whether or not they should build a custom website for their rental listing. I think that this trend has grown to be popular in the last 2 to 3 years. Someone is pitching it, but I personally have never seen it work. And I think the reason why it doesn't work is because when I think about how I used to search for rentals, I would go into the rental platform and search. I would never go into Google, being that it's so massive, and search for a rental property. I would always go into rental property platforms and search there. So if you have a site dedicated to your property, most people are never going to see it because they're already in Zillow or they're already in Trulia. They're not doing it through Google and they're not doing it through ChatGPT. Anyways, you don't need this lecture because you are already on Zillow Rentals. So you're already a step ahead of some of your competition. Even if it doesn't necessarily feel like it's working already, or if it's not working so far, that's fine because you are already in the right place, which I assure you not all of your competition is. So you as the landlord, if you're watching this, you've probably listed your property on Zillow, which is a very popular rental platform website, and now you are waiting in anticipation for interested, qualified, reasonable renters with great credit scores and a quiet lifestyle to come in. So let's talk about those renters for a second. So the United States has almost 103 million renters, meaning that 31% of the population rents. And then when we look at the types of properties that people are renting, 45% of renters are in big apartment complexes, and then roughly 30 to 40% are in single family homes. So detached homes, just a single family home with yard, etc. And then within those renter pools, not just the house, but the house and the apartment complexes, the distribution of rental types falls the following way. So studios and one bedrooms make up 30 to 35%, two bedrooms make up 30 to 35% as well, three bedrooms make up 20 to 25%, and four bedrooms make up 10 to 15%. And I'm throwing this data in just so you know that the numbers do support having a rental and making money off of it. When we pull away from those stats and do a deeper dive, we see that there is more demand for properties that are two bedrooms or smaller, which is something to consider if you are in the process of purchasing a rental, or maybe in the future, you might want to look at the numbers and then buy your rental around demand. So again, something that's two bedrooms or smaller. Aligned with that, I've seen a lot of clients have success with three bedroom properties or smaller. I think that comes, or the new popularity of three bedrooms comes from the at-home office, meaning that renters in 2026 are wanting that third bedroom more now than ever because they work from home more now than they did in the past. So even though two bedrooms have traditionally been popular, I have not seen people have trouble renting out three bedrooms. And I believe it's because of the demand for that at-home office. All right, let's talk about Zillow's stats. So when you upload your Zillow listing, Zillow will show you insights and recommendations page. And these recommendations are only so useful in my opinion. So let me explain why the world is still going to need humans for a little while. That's because I assume these recommendations are being pulled from AI, and AI is just scanning patterns in the rentals and then making recommendations off of those patterns. This actually happens on Airbnb all the time too. So I've noticed when I'm doing listings for clients over there, what I will see is that like 90% of the time when Airbnb asks you if you want them to pick the lead photo that they will pick is a couch photo in the living room. And it's usually like a very neutral colored couch. And I believe that the reason why Airbnb does this is because it's based off of what all the other Airbnb hosts have put as their primary photo, but it's not actually based off of which properties succeed the best, because you want the first photo, and this is true whether you're on Airbnb, Zillow, or some other platform, you want that first photo to pop off the page. You want it to be eye-catching. And when you have a main photo that is a neutral color that looks like all the other photos, it does not jump off the page. So that's AI in Airbnb, but we also see AI in Zillow. So the first recommendation or critique here is that the description is shorter than others. And the problem with that recommendation from Zillow is that it assumes that longer descriptions are a good thing. And it's assuming that because a lot of other property managers or self-property managers have put in really long descriptions. That's not an effective strategy, even if all of your competition is doing it, because people have short attention spans and no one is coming to your rental listing to find high pros. They're just trying to get information. What's around this property? What does this property have to offer? Does it have amenities that I care about? Does it have a garage? Those are things that people want to scan and quickly see. And it's hard to find that when you're looking at blocks of text or someone has written out like, welcome to our Victorian home. And if you have a Victorian home and you've done that, please don't feel bad. Everybody does this, and I understand the inclination to do it. But when you write out kind of lofty language in the rental listing, it becomes very hard to find the information that you're looking for. The second recommendation that Zillow has, or the second thing that I don't know that they're even recommending, they're just saying 2% of similar listings allow for phone calls, which would indicate to you, I guess, that you should have your phone number listed, but that's only 2%, which is counter to all the other advice. Like they're saying other listings are longer, but that's, I assume, the majority. In this case, 2% is definitely not the majority, but they're telling you that, I think, as a suggestion to include your phone number. I never include my phone number, and that's maybe just because of my communication preference, which is that I want people to email me. I'm comfortable with email, and I think someone that is a little bit more serious and a little bit more thoughtful is going to email. This may be a generational thing where younger people may bristle against this, but I also am inclined to think that for the most part, the people that rent your property often reflect you. So whatever style you're most comfortable communicating in, set that. But the other reason why I don't list phone numbers, either for myself or for the clients that I work with, is because across all the platforms, we see spam and bots. And a very quick way to eliminate a lot of them is to never list your phone number publicly. Okay, and then here they're saying you could get 38% more contacts if you show your property address. Maybe they believe that. Maybe that's true, but it sort of depends on which type of property I'm listing. So I would be more inclined to show my address if I'm in a big condo complex where not just anyone can get in, or if it's an unfurnished rental. But I am less inclined to put the address in if it's a furnished rental. And the reason for that is because we don't want the general public to just know that there's a fully furnished rental just sitting there empty. And obviously at some point you're going to have to disclose the address, but I would do that further into the process and the communication with the tenants. And I don't feel like it's a big enough detriment to you to list your address right off the bat. So I do not list the address most times. If someone feels strongly about it, then we can have a conversation. But again, with a furnished rental, definitely not. With an unfurnished rental or a rental that's in a condo complex or has some other way of protecting from the general public, then I might list the address. In the next screen, Zillow states which features are most common in this market. And so they're talking about here that a dishwasher is common, an air conditioner is common, and a balcony is common. This is all great news, but then what is a new landlord supposed to do with this information? This actually leads us nicely into section 3, which is the tactics that I'll talk about. So I'll have 3 tactics total for how to strengthen your Zillow listing. And we'll start right with the one that I just discussed, which is that renters want a dishwasher, an air conditioner, and a balcony. Now, Zillow allows you to fill out certain amenities, and this is where you would see options for a dishwasher, for air conditioning, etc. But I think you and a lot of other new landlords would be surprised by the amount of other landlords, so your competition, that do not fully fill out their amenities when they are listing properties. And that definitely works against you, so you want to do that. But then on the flip side of that, it is also surprising the number of tenants that don't put in the criteria that they really care about, like a dishwasher or a balcony, when they're doing a search. They might just put in 2 bedrooms as their criteria without these other things. So when you think about it that way, like, yes, I already have it listed in my amenities, which you should, but you also should highlight it other ways. And so you should bring it up high in your listing. Again, keeping the listing short, but keeping it to the items that really matter for a renter. So listing the amenities that they care about. In this case, a balcony, a dishwasher, air conditioning. Also, for some of the amenities, showing it in the photos. So I recommend showing the inside of the garage in the photos, showing the washer and dryer in the photos, showing the dishwasher in the photos, right? Because when you do this as the landlord, you have reinforced for the potential renter in multiple different ways that these amenities that they really care about exist. And we know that people learn differently. So some people are very visual and they'll need to see it in a photo. Some people retain information better when they read it. So just having it different places for someone that takes in all the information, great. They get hit with it multiple times. Also, for people that learn differently, you are providing information in different ways for different tenants. Okay, the second tip is relevant to furnished rentals. It's not as much relevant to unfurnished rentals, but I said I would circle back to midterm rentals, so that's where we're at. Midterm rentals are often called monthly rentals or monthly furnished rentals, meaning you have a furnished property, but you're renting for like 3 months at a time or 6 months at a time. And I support new landlords that have furnished long-term rentals and unfurnished long-term rentals. And for those that come in that have monthly furnished rentals, so these midterm rentals, I recommend clicking the furnished rental button on and off to drive traffic. And the reason for that is that in my experience, there are a lot of renters that are looking for unfurnished rentals, but when you put a rental in front of them, even at an elevated cost, but it's furnished and you're going to pay the utilities, so it's like very much a convenience play, people will scoop these up even if they were shopping initially for an unfurnished rental. So for that reason, I toggle between furnished and unfurnished on Zillow, and that functionality also works for Trulia and for HotPads. Okay, and then my third tip, you deserve this one if you've come this far. It is relevant across all platforms. It doesn't matter if you're doing a short-term rental on Airbnb, if you're doing a furnished rental on Furnish Finder, or if you're doing like a long-term standard on Zillow or a furnished rental on Zillow. It does not matter. The best way to save yourself time and effort and headaches and annoyance is to pay attention to how the renter communicates from the first email. Obviously, there are going to be other vetting mechanisms that you want to pay attention to as a landlord, but this one is just going to save you so much time because you're not even going to proceed to the next step. And the next step is asking them to fill out an application, and you want them to fill out an application before they come and see the property, or send you their license. But you won't even proceed to that next step if they don't do the initial email well. And what you're looking for is an email where they introduce themselves, tell you why they want the rental, why they're going to be in town, who's coming. And it doesn't have to cover all of that information, but it should cover like at least 2 of those points. And they should be writing in full paragraphs with sentences. They should be friendly and kind of courting you as well. And the reason why you want to see this is that good communicators tend to make good employees, which means they're always going to be employed and they're always going to tell you if something's going on with the rental. So an email that you don't want is like, hi, this is Bob, need for 4 months. You want like, hi, this is Susan. Me and my husband are relocating. I work in the tech field and he works at the hospital. We are looking to rent for a year. Do you allow for a cat? Something like that, right? Like that's a nice email where they're coming in and they're introducing themselves and telling you about their circumstances. I do want to note here that on Zillow, it's a little bit different because your first contact from them will likely look more like this. And so don't write them off based off of that because everybody's going to come in this way where they're just filling out applications. It's after you've received something that looks like this, which is their intent or their interest. You then go back to them and say, okay, tell me a little bit about yourself, or, the property is available. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What can I tell you next? Or are you interested in seeing the property? And so just paying attention to this one detail will not only save you from headaches, but it will also save you a lot of back and forth in communication. And something else on that, we never chase down renters. So if you reach out to someone and they don't respond, just move on because they're ghosting you. And it not only is it frustrating to work with those kind of tenants, but they also just never convert. They never become renters. So you don't actually want to be like following up with someone all the time because they're likely never going to pay you any money and you've now wasted some time on that. So always pay attention to the way people are coming in and the way they're communicating. So that's it for Zillow. Now I'm going to talk about my consulting services. Typically, the people that hire me are new landlords or landlords that are new to a certain kind of rental property. And usually experienced landlords that hire me are hiring me because they are doing a furnished rental for the first time and they want to talk about that, or they're hiring me because they're brand new to the long-term unfurnished space. So on average, my clients, new landlords, they secure a renter within 12 days and they are getting their first payment, as in the new renter is walking in the door and paying them within 3 weeks of us going live on the rental platforms. So I offer 3 different packages. One is just a 1-hour question answer. So I can guide that, or you can just ask me questions. People do it different ways. The second is a listing build service, meaning I will put your listing up on the 3 big rental platforms, and I will do this within 3 days of you booking my services. That way you don't have to learn the different rental platforms, and you also don't lose money because the property sat for 2 months empty because you're too nervous or you don't have the time to do the rental platforms, etc. Like, you can just hire me and it will be done in 3 business days, and it will be done correctly with language that protects you, language that staves off problem tenants, the right photos, the right positioning, etc. And then finally, the big package that I offer is called the Hold My Hand package. And I call it this because when I started my own rental investments in 2014, I wanted someone to hold my hand through that experience very much. So the Hold My Hand package includes 8 structured consulting hours. I also build out and list your property on the 3 major platforms. So not just Zillow and then feeding into Trulia and HotPads, but the other 2 major platforms for long-term unfurnished, or if you're doing a furnished property on the 3 big furnished rental platforms. So I will list it. I do 8 hours of structured consulting where we cover like how to handle deposits, your local laws, the state laws, the federal laws, the questions you can ask and what you can't ask, how to prepare yourself or prevent for squatters and evictions, how to price your rental, how to market your property, how to background and credit check your renters. And with that, I will handle those details. So for your first rental, I will handle all of that for you and talk you through it. And then most people end this package with a few hours to spare so that they're already secured with their first renter. But as the next one comes in, if they have questions, they can tap into me without having to pay. And then on a final note, I also stay on the property and on the communication for the first month of the first renter so that if there's any questions or things are falling through, we can navigate that together. Because if you're going to have an issue, it's typically with the first rental. And that's because unless you've lived there, you're new to this and the property is new to having renters. And if you've lived there before, there may be things that you didn't notice or that didn't bother you that may bother renters. Or if you've purchased this property with the idea of renting it out or inherited it or whatever, then you may just not know what the issues are with the property or how to deal with it as people come in and have requests and ask questions about it. So if you want to book consulting, I have a link to it here in the top comment and in the description of this video.